What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for MLB Wednesday, April 27th.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top DFS picks for today's MLB slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have an 8-game slate tonight. And remember, we are now using the 2022 stats for this season. So that really helps identify the players that are hot this year. Now we're still using, for the OPS numbers, what we're doing now is we're using a 2-year average. We were using a 3-year average last year, but 3 years is just a little bit too long. Players can change quite a bit in 3 years. So now we use the 2021 and the 2022 numbers for the OPS splits, and we average those numbers together so we have a big enough sample size to give you accurate OPS information on their splits. So let's get into this slate. At the pitcher position, I like Joe Ryan, and he's pitching against a low salary batting team, the Detroit Tigers. Joe Ryan, he's a pretty balanced pitcher, but he pitches his best ball versus righties and switch hitters, only giving up a .470 OPS versus righties and a .408 OPS versus switch hitters, facing 4 righties and 2 switch hitters. Now the Tigers have hit 2 of his last 9 pitches. That's a small sample size, so we can throw that out. But I like the splits here. He pitches well to all hands anyways. And Vegas thinks this is going to be a low-scoring game. Only 7 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. And Joe Ryan is $9,200 FanDuel salary, $400 more on DraftKings. And he's averaging 36 fantasy points per game on the season. Has an ERA of 1.69. Record is 2-1. And he's pitching an average of 79 pitches per game. So I like Joe Ryan here versus the Detroit Tigers. Okay, let's take a look at the catcher first base position. Here's a stud that I like on the slate. It's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with a 50% batting advantage over Michael Wacha. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is batting 44% better versus righty pitchers, batting a 1.059 OPS versus righties. Michael Wacha giving up a .579 OPS versus righties. And Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is 2 for 4, batting .500 with a 1.6 OPS versus Wacha. He's $4,000 FanDuel salary, $1,800 more on DraftKings, averaging 12 fantasy points per game on the season, and he has a batting average of .328. So I like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. here versus Michael Wacha. I also like Matt Olson, batting against the low-salary pitcher Mark Leader Jr. Matt Olson is batting 16% better versus righty pitchers, batting a 1.030 OPS versus righties, and Mark Leader Jr. is giving up a 1 OPS versus lefties. Matt Olson is 1 for 3 with a 1.666 OPS versus Leader Jr. because that one hit was for a home run. He's $3,800 FanDuel salary, $1,200 more on DraftKings, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season, and he's got a batting average of .333. So I like Matt Olson here versus Mark Leader. Okay, let's take a look at the second base position. I like Luis Arraez with a 51% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Michael Pineda. Luis Arraez is batting 42% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .897 OPS versus righties. Michael Pineda pitching 9% worse to lefties as he does righties, giving up a .601 OPS versus lefties. Now there's no at-bats versus Pineda yet, but I like this pick because Luis Arraez is only $2,800 FanDuel salary and only $600 more on DraftKings, averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season, and he has a batting average of .354. So I like Luis Arraez here versus Michael Pineda. Now I also like Jazz Chisholm Jr. with a 71% batting advantage over Eric Fedde. Jazz Chisholm Jr. batting 46% better to righty pitchers, batting a .979 OPS versus righties. Eric Fedde pitching his worst ball versus lefty batters, 25% worse than his pitch to righties, giving up a .876 OPS versus lefties. And I like this pick because Jazz Chisholm Jr. is 3 for 10, batting .300 with a 1.264 OPS versus Fedde, and 2 of those 3 hits are for home runs. He's $4,100 FanDuel salary, $1,200 more on DraftKings, averaging 15 fantasy points per game on the season, has a batting average of .286. So I like Jazz Chisholm Jr. here versus Eric Fedde.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, who do we have at the third base position? I like Austin Riley with a 10% batting advantage over a low-salary pitcher, Mark Leader Jr. Austin Riley batting a .923 OPS versus righties. Mark Leader Jr. pitching his worst ball versus righty batters, giving up a 1.152 OPS versus righties. There's no at-bats versus Leader Jr. yet. Austin Riley is $3,900 FanDuel salary, only $200 more on DraftKings, so I like that DraftKings price. And he's averaging 12 fantasy points per game on the season, has a batting average of .277. So I like Austin Riley here versus Mark Leader Jr. I also like Joey Wendell with a 24% batting advantage over Eric Fedde. Joey Wendell batting a .807 OPS versus righties. Eric Fedde pitching his worst ball versus lefty batters, giving up a .876 OPS versus lefties. Joey Wendell is only $2,700 FanDuel salary, $1,400 more on DraftKings, and he's been on fire. We picked him yesterday. He scored 41 fantasy points. He scored 19 and 18 fantasy points in the games before that. And so he's been on fire. And let's see, his batting average is .362. So I like Joey Wendell here versus Eric Fedde. Now here's another value play. I like Isaiah Keener-Falefa with a 28% batting advantage over a low-salary pitcher, Tyler Wells. Isaiah Keener-Falefa batting 15% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .715 OPS versus righties. Tyler Wells pitching 13% worse to righties as he does lefties, giving up a .825 OPS versus righties. Now, Isaiah Keener-Falefa is 0 for 2 versus Wells, but I like the splits here. And he's only $2,400 FanDuel salary, $900 more on DraftKings, averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season, with a batting average of .296. So I like Isaiah Keener Falafa here versus Tyler Wells. Okay, another guy that I like here is Miguel Andujar, or I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, Andujar, and he's got a 29% batting advantage over that same pitcher, Tyler Wells. Miguel Andujar is batting 15% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .699 OPS versus righties. Tyler Wells giving up a .825 OPS versus righties. Now, just keep an eye on this. Make sure this guy's in the batting order. It appears that he is right now, but he's only $2,000 FanDuel salary. Same price on DraftKings. He's averaging 7 fantasy points per game on the season with a batting average of .253. And oftentimes when these guys are super cheap, it's because they're not going to be in the batting order. But right now it does appear that he's a probable batter. So just as always, guys, check your lineups before the games start. Make sure your guys are in the batting order because those tend to change, right up until the game. Those will kind of adjust a little bit. So always check your lineups. Goes without saying. But I like Miguel Andujar here versus Tyler Wells. Just remember, guys, I'm doing these picks early in the morning. So we have the batting order that's coming through on MLB for the time that we do this video. But they do change throughout the day. That's why I think yesterday I had a player that I picked. And I had him in my lineup, and then I checked my lineup right before the game started, and he wasn't in the batting order. So I just swapped him out and submitted my new lineup, and I was good to go. So you always got to do that, especially for baseball. But the good news is with baseball is you don't have to deal with the injuries as much, just the weather games and the batting order of the players. But that's DFS, guys. We should, that's DFS 101. So, okay, let's get into the shortstop position. I like Xander Bogaerts with a 43% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Ross Stripling. Xander Bogaerts batting 17% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .908 OPS versus righties. And Ross Stripling pitching 26% worse to righties as he does lefties. And he's giving up a .755 OPS versus righties. Xander Bogaerts is 2 for 7, batting a .286 and a 1 OPS versus Stripling. One of those hits is for a home run. And we picked Xander Bogaerts yesterday. He scored 28 fantasy points. I think our pitchers did really well, and we had a handful of batters that crushed it. Like any slate, some of these picks are going to get you, 0, 3, 5 points. It's just the nature of DFS MLB. Guys strike out, and it stinks. But that's just how MLB goes, You keep plugging away, and some days your lineup will pop off, and it's fun. So Xander Bogaerts is averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season, and he's got a batting average of .362. So I like Xander Bogaerts here versus Ross Stripling.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, moving on to the outfield position. Oh, we had Mike Trout yesterday as well. He scored 35 fantasy points. So that was a great play. He was a stud that you wanted to have in your lineups. looks like Aaron Judge is in a decent spot here versus Tyler Wells, although he is only 1 for 6 versus Wells, so that's a little concerning. But take a look at Jesus Sanchez with a 68% batting advantage over Eric Fetty. Jesus Sanchez is batting 43% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .987 OPS versus righties, and Eric Fetty is pitching his worst ball versus lefty batters, 25% worse than his pitch to righties, giving up a .876 OPS versus lefties. Jesus Sanchez is 2 for 7 with a .286 batting average and a 1 OPS versus Fetty. One of those hits is for a home run. He's $3,300 FanDuel salary, only $300 more on DraftKings, so I like that DraftKings price. And he's averaging 12 fantasy points per game on the season with a batting average of .290. So I like Jesus Sanchez here versus Eric Fetty. Oh, so Jacques Peterson was one of those guys that was in a great spot yesterday. He was on fire. He put up 0 fantasy points. So he was a donut in my lineup, but that happens. So, okay, another guy that I like here tonight is Yordan Alvarez with a 78% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Glenn Otto. Yordan Alvarez is batting 47% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .941 OPS versus righties. Glenn Otto pitching his worst ball versus lefty batters, 31% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .750 OPS versus lefties. And Yordan Alvarez is 2 for 5 with a 1.2 OPS versus Otto. Both of those hits are doubles. He's only $3,200 FanDuel salary. He's $2,300 more on DraftKings. So I love that FanDuel price, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. Now he only has a batting average of .200, but he must have had some big swinging games to get that average at 11 fantasy points. And he's in a great spot here tonight. Now, I probably wouldn't play him on DraftKings, but I think he makes a fantastic FanDuel play. So I like Yordan Alvarez on FanDuel here versus Glenn Otto. Now, one of my favorite plays on the slate, I always love to play this guy when he's facing righty pitchers. So I like Michael Brantley with a 56% batting advantage over that same low salary pitcher, Glenn Otto. Michael Brantley batting 25% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .891 OPS versus righties. And we know Glenn Otto pitching his worst ball versus lefty batters, giving up a .750 OPS versus lefties. Michael Brantley is 1 for 2 versus Otto with a 1 OPS. He's only $2,700 FanDuel salary, 1,000 more on DraftKings, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He's got a batting average of .311. So he looks like a steal on both sides here tonight. So I like Michael Brantley here versus Glenn Otto. Another outfielder I like is Alex Verdugo with an 8% batting advantage over Ross Stripling. Alex Verdugo is batting 33% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .882 OPS versus righties. This is another guy I like to play versus righty pitchers. Now, Ross Stripling does pitch his best ball versus lefty batters, only giving up a .562 OPS versus lefties. But I like this pick because Alex Verdugo is 3 for 7, batting a .429 batting average and a 1.556 OPS versus Stripling. He's $3,400 FanDuel salary, same price on DraftKings, so I love that DraftKings price. He's averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season, and he's got a batting average of .258. So I like Alex Verdugo here versus Ross Stripling.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this MLB slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again and good luck.